And I have shared the slides in here, the week 2. So again, good afternoon, everybody. So this is the first week of process modeling and optimization. Bear in mind that next week I will not be able to give the lecture on Monday, okay? And your process control, I will not be able to give it on Tuesday as well because I have to go to KL to for an event related with Petronas. It's more about research things, okay? In your process modeling from last week, we have gone through through that overview basically. So me and Miss Chachi is gonna teach this process modeling, whereas me mostly on the MATLAB and on the lecture, and Miss Chachi is gonna be she will give you tutorials on the Aspen HYSYS. Okay, there are two projects, project 1 and project 2, and I know that all of you have made a group, and so far I don't want to touch that group, but rather I will start on thinking about the problem that I will give to you for the project 1, and hopefully by next week you guys can start playing with the MATLAB codes as well. Okay. And our lecture slide in here is going to be based on the MATLAB. Like I said last week, basically your why you want to study Aspen HYSYS and MATLAB, because Aspen HYSYS is very good, or Aspen Plus is very good in letting you to simulate the process. If you have a particular process, you mix up the reactor with the distillation column or with the pressure swing adsorption or with whatever it is, then what you need to do is just install the reactor, distillation column, install the tank, install whatever you want, and then you will be able to get the performance of that thing using an Aspen HYSYS. So it's basically a very good package for a chemical engineer to do. But with MATLAB, it becomes very useful when you go into something that is very specific. That's why we try to cover the MATLAB, but the MATLAB that are given in your lecture is not really an advanced MATLAB. Okay, it may look advanced, but it's actually not something that is really advanced. It's quite basic. And in this unit, we try to give you as much introductions to these two software, such that when you later go into the process plan design in your 4th year, then you integrate everything that you have: reaction engineering, heat transfer, mass transfer, okay, thermodynamics and everything. Then you will be able to apply that into how chemical engineering use all their knowledge to basically build up a plan, check the economy of the process and everything like that. Okay. So in this second week, we're gonna go and cover the development of the LAM model. Okay. I will not go into the details. The details you can find into the video that I have recorded and in the Canvas module. But later I want to highlight what is most important again and reiterate the most important concepts in your lecture slides so that you can pay attention onto it. Okay, so LAM model. We have talked about LAM model and also distributed model. LAM model is the easiest model. Okay, so in the basic properties in the process systems, again, LAM model is also based on the conservation of mass, energy, and momentum. LAM model in here implies that there is no variations in the spatial properties, meaning you don't, within your systems, everything is homogeneous, everything is uniform. So you don't have anything that varies within your system. Okay. So in the process modeling for the LAM model, if we want to develop the LAM model, we always use this conservation law. Okay. The one on the top in here is in plus generation is equal out plus consumption plus accumulations, or in plus production is equal out plus accumulation. So what important in here is that you can see that from the top you have 5, the one on the bottom you only have 4. So basically, if you move the consumption into the left-hand side, then the net production, which is the generation minus the consumption, will be equal to the production. Okay, so this whether you want to adopt the top balance or you want to adopt the bottom balance, it doesn't really matter. It's the same for both. Okay. Now this is a schematic diagram of your system. Okay, you can see that you have three different sets of arrow. The one in here on the top is the mass, which is paired with the one in here that comes out in the bottom, and we can make also a momentum balance in momentum in here that pairs with the one on the that comes out from on the top in here, and the one in the middle is the energy. Okay, and this is the systems. Okay, the system boundary can be over a macroscopic object or over a microscopic fluid element. So if you are dealing with your things in the introductions, then most of them are the macroscopic object. Okay, the most important characteristics of the LAM model is that we ignore the special aspects of the system. Okay, so that all special properties are lumped together, and in essence it describes the integral average value of the properties, whatever properties it is. Okay, it can be a temperature, it can be a concentrations, right? Now, what is the difference between the LAM and distributed? The LAM models is basically perfect mixing. At any particular time instant, the values of operating conditions are approximately the same at all points within the unit. Okay. Distributed model, however, shows that there is an imperfect mixing that will result in different operating conditions at different points, even at the same time. Okay. So imagine if you are dealing with the real situations. For example, you are dealing with the rod. Okay. Then if there is a heat transfer or there is a conduction through that rod, then it will be unreasonable to if the rod is very long, it will be unreasonable to assume that the temperature on the whole rod will be similar. So therefore, the temperature will vary if you hit one side of the rod with something that is hot, or you touch it with something hot, then there will be a variation of the temperature from this side to the other side. Okay, then that is what we call as a distributed model, because we have a distributions of either temperature or concentrations over the certain coordinates. Okay, so if we look at the mathematical aspect of these things, LAM versus distributed, so the LAM model in here, now in here we're talking about the unsteady state or transient behaving systems. Okay, so meaning that we have a variable of the time that plays into the effect in here. For LAM models, then meaning that since we don't have the variation in terms of the special properties, then we will have an ordinary differential equations. Okay, because this is characterized by a single independent variable. Okay, on a distributed model, on the other hand, if beside time we also have another one or two special variable. Okay, it can be a special coordinate, or it can be whatever the property of the system. Therefore, we will have a partial differential equations in time. Okay, so if we don't really have these time variables, then what we will have is essentially an algebraic equations. Algebraic means that we have a linear form of the equations, but if we are dealing with the distributed models, then some of it probably may, even if we are dealing with the steady state conditions, then we may deal with the nonlinear equation form. Okay, but for this particular slides, we are talking about the unsteady state or the transient behaving systems. So then the next one will be asked, why sir do I have to choose LAM or distributed, for example? It goes back into the judgment of the modeler. Okay, what is the important consideration? What is the objective of the model being constructed? Is it for control? Is it for optimization? Is it for operating procedure? Or is it only to calculate the bigger mass balance of your system? So depending on the required accuracy, then you can decide whether you can deal with the LAM model or you can deal with the distributed model. Okay, this will become more clear for those that have done transport phenomena with me. Anybody that has done transport phenomena with me in here? I think only two I saw only, I think if not wrong. Most of you have not done transport phenomena, right? Because in transport phenomena, I describe about the different level of models. So when you go into my first week of the transport phenomena, then I talk about the level 1 model, level 2 model, level 3 model, and level 4 models. So level 1 will be the easiest one, okay? Level 2 will be a bit more difficult. Level 3 is more difficult, and then 4 is the most difficult one, okay? Probably next semester, if you go into transport phenomena, I'll go and talk about these things in more detail. So mathematical modeling, we have talked about this already, even in process control, that we basically want to approximate the behavior of the process. We model it as a mathematical equations, okay? And the mass balances can be developed as a specific for a specific chemical component, component mass balance and a component balance, okay? And as a chemical engineer, we know that there is a difference between the non-reacting system with the reacting system. So for the non-reacting systems, we have no production term, okay? Then there will be no difference between the total and the component mass balances, okay? And for the reacting systems, on the other hand, oh yeah, Saki already done transfer phenomena, isn't it? For the reacting system, then production and consumption term may exist. Thus, there is a difference between the total and component mass balance. Okay. Now, guys, if you have any questions when I go through the slides, when I try to emphasize on the concepts, then you can always stop me and ask me, or you can type in the chat box. Okay. Now, this is the first example. Okay. A tank has two inflows and one outflow as follows. So, pure water comes from one inlet and pure ethanol comes from another inlet. The total mass in the system is M. The mass flow rate is expressed as W and is independent from M. Okay, first we draw the boundary of the system. So this is what we call the control volume. Okay, and if we put into these things, we just follow this one is 100, this is 40, and then this is 120 kilogram per hour. Okay, so meaning what we will have is essentially an accumulation, because the inlet rate is not the same with the outlet rate, right? So we have two inlets, water plus the ethanol, and then we have the stream S that comes out from the tank plus the accumulations in here. So the rate of the mass change with time will be equal to the input minus the output. Now, what is important in here is for you to check the unit. Okay, I have iterated that in my video, so you try to go and play that video again to see things in more detail. Okay, now the example 2, mixing tank with liquid volumetric inflow. Same tank as in example 1, but the tank has volumetric inflows and outflow. So the model assumptions in here is that the density in the different fluids is rho and the density in the solution is constant. Okay, so note in here that the density at the different component will be different. So what we make in here is the total mass balance. Okay, the density. Note you need to always check again the units of this one. The one on the left hand side should be equal to the one on the right hand side. In here, the difference is that we are putting in the density in here. Okay, so we basically, instead of using M that we do in the first example, in here we took it a bit more detail. So we multiply the density by the volume. Okay. So what essentially we can get in here is the change of the volume with respect to time. Now, for the example 3, the example 3 in here is the same as in example 1, but let's assume that the tank is fully sealed and has a vapor inflow and outflow. So another assumption that we have in here is that the vapor follows the ideal gas law. We have an isothermal conditions and the constant volume in the vapor mixing tank and the constant molar weight in the mixture. So what we can do in here is essentially we can convert the mass into this quantity in here, because you are basically using the ideal gas law. Ideal gas law is the PV is equal nRT. And then N, the mole, is equal to the mass divided by the molecular weight. Okay, so in essence, your mass will be equal to the molecular weight multiplied by pressure by volume divided by the ideal gas constant multiplied by the temperature. Okay, so if you put it like that, again, you need to always check the unit of this one. What is the unit of the ideal gas constant that you need to use in here? Is it the joule? Then how did you convert that joule into another units that can cancel out with the molecular weight? Okay, with the temperature, with the volume, and with the pressure. If you did everything correctly, then you can assume that basically the molecular weight, volume, ideal gas constant with the temperature can be taken out of the derivative. Okay, then you will be able to get essentially the change in terms of the pressure with respect to time. Okay, so in the example 1, we go with the simple one with the mass. Example 2, we go with the volume. Example 3, the final expression basically containing the change in the pressure with time. Now we go a little bit, we go using the same example, but we go into another angle. Okay, in here we have a model assumptions that the inflow is actually a pure chemical component. The mass fraction of ethanol is omega. The mass fraction of water is therefore 1 minus omega. Because you only have two components in the system, you only have ethanol and water. So you utilize this conservation law. For ethanol, you have this. Okay. For water, you have this. If you add these two, you will have this one, the total mass balance on the bottom, right? So essentially, what you get from your ethanol mass balance is this one. Okay, the change in terms of the mass of the ethanol with respect to time. Now, we need to know that because the mass and composition are not constant, so therefore we have to use a chain rule. Okay, therefore, based on these equations, if we rearrange the terms, we will get the one on the bottom in here. The composition change can be expressed as a function of total mass balance and the ethanol mass balance. So, not that we have these things already, okay, but we don't know what are these terms in here and what are these terms in here. So we want to simplify, we want to get the final explicit functions of this composition change. So what are you gonna do? So we're gonna do next is we make another assumption. The mass M is larger than 0, okay? Because of course for a physical system to exist, then the mass has to be larger than 0, right? Then we took the mass balance for a total mass balance from example 1 and total mass balance from example 4. We put these things. You see, this term is what we have for this first term in here, right? And then the second term in here is what we have in the first term in here on the right hand side of these equations in here. Okay, we substitute both into here, then we have these things in here. So in essence, what we find in here is we can find the compositions, the change in the composition with respect to time. Okay, so still going into the same example, a tank with constant volume has an inflow with the volumetric flow rate Q and an inflow concentration Cin. So the assumption in here is that the constant volume in the tank, the homogeneous mixing, so the concentration is identical everywhere in the tank and is similar to the outflow concentration. By assuming something like this, meaning that in the tank we always put a stirrer, something that will stir the whole tank content so that everything is uniform. Okay, so in such a way, meaning that whatever the concentrations or the temperature within the tank will be equal with whatever that comes out from the tank. So we can write out this equation in here. In is equal out plus accumulation. Okay, so you have in, out plus accumulations. Then this flow rate of of mass in can be represented by the molecular weight multiplied by the flow rate. So the flow rate in here is in terms of the flow rate, okay? So for example, in here you can put it like a kilogram per kilogram mole or gram per gram mole. The flow rate in here will be equal to, for example, meter cube per second, for example, okay? And then the concentrations in here will be equal to, for example, gram per meter cube or whatever the unit is. So you just need to make sure that every unit is consistent in here, okay? Then we also assume that the M and the V are constant. That's why we can cross over this M in here. And because the V is also constant in here, like what we take before, okay? Constant volume in the tank in here, right? So we can have these final expressions of this one, which basically telling you the change in the concentration with respect to time that depends on the concentrations of the inlet, okay? And it depends on the flow rate basically, because in here the flow rate of the in and out is the same and is equal to Q, and then also dependent on the volume of the tank as well. Everybody has questions up to here, up to this example 6? Everybody okay with this? I'll go a little bit more, then after that, then I will. Well, you see why is Q in is equal Q out. That's just a simplifications in here to be made. You see, to make to be able to go from this form into this form in here. Okay, and I think this one in here is well, you don't necessarily have to take this Q is equal Q in or Q out, right? But in this particular example, we just take it this as is equal to this one, just to simplify so that we can have this final expression in here. You get it? You see? It not necessarily have to be here. If you don't make it like this, then it will probably not be able to go into this form in here. Okay, these two simplifications are important for you to be able to go from here to this particular form. Okay, but it doesn't have to be, right? That's why it's very important when you read the problem in the assignment, you need to check everything and all the things that are given in the problem statement so that you can get the correct answer. So it's a good question. Okay, now we go into, well, not necessarily, right? Because you may have a difference in terms of the C in and C out, right, Jason? In terms of the concentration in and concentration out. In terms of the flow rate, yes, but probably the concentrations in here may not be equal to the concentrations out. So if you're talking about the accumulation in terms of the volume, yes, you are correct. There will not be an accumulation in terms of the volume, but what are you talking about? If this is the accumulation in terms of the concentration, then it may not be true. You agree with me, Jason? Okay, good questions. Okay, that is a good questions. Good questions. If Q in is equal Q out, the accumulation in the volume 0. Okay, but you still remember that you have another things that is another component that is a concentration. So it may not be correct for the accumulation in terms of the component concentrations. Okay. Now the system of the mass balances. Example 7: two tanks in series. Two well-mixed tanks are connected in series. They have constant but different volumes. So you have two tanks now. The first tank and the second tank. You have the constant volumes, and then you have the well-mixed tanks. Okay. And all the assumptions are the same. So if we basically extrapolate, we use the same conditions on everything, except we do for the first tank, the previous example, we just use the same example, and then for the second tank we use the same example. Then what we can do is we can have two sets of ordinary differential equations in here. Okay. Now this one can be represented in terms of the matrix. Okay, so the matrix will be d over dt of the C1, C2 is equal to this and that one. Okay, this is something that we call a state space form using matrices. Now, if we take it easy, so we basically assume that there is no accumulations, or simply this one is assumed to be equal to 0, these two components, dc1 over dt and dc2 over dt is equal to 0, then what we will have is essentially this one. So note that if you have this multiplication of the matrix, this one have to be multiplied by this. So minus q over v1 multiplied by c1 plus 0 plus multiplied by c2 will be equal to this first term, minus q1 minus q over v1 divided multiplied by c in. So in essence, the c1 will be equal to the c in. Okay. Then the second part of this one, the second row basically will be q over v2 multiplied by c1 plus minus q over v2 multiplied by c2 is equal to 0. So in essence, this one implies that the c1 will be equal to c2. And since c1 is equal c in, meaning that c2 is equal c1 is equal c in. Okay, therefore the solution becomes trivial. In the steady state, okay, in the steady state when there is no accumulations, then whatever goes in will be equal to whatever comes in. Okay. Now I think I will let the other 11 slides to be discussed on next week. So I don't want to go into that thing, but rather I want to talk a little bit about the role of the process modeling in real industrial applications or in research. Okay, in the invention of the technology, and a little bit on the project that your senior have done with me not long ago. Okay, let me open the paper first. I think so you can basically change your perceptions as to sir, there are too many things that how to say that thing, too many things that these things are quite complicated. I mean, then I don't really see any applications of the process modeling into the real application. So this is where it's time to dispel those perception. Okay, everything that you did in the process modeling, I have shown you in the process control that can be applied into the membrane process to optimize the total production distillate, or to optimize the profit or the operational costs that you want to do associated with the membrane. Okay, so this one is actually a project that is related with my PhD. I think I finished my PhD 2010. I think the one was from University of Queensland. So you have two seniors in here. The second name in here is your senior. I think he graduated not long ago. I think 2020. I think he graduated. Jason Ijuang Yo. And then you have another senior. This senior, she is, I think, much more far. I think she is the second semester batch. Okay, I think our program opened in 2012, if not wrong. Okay, so I think she graduated at 2017, and then she signed up for a PhD under me. Jason also now doing a master project under me, but he is doing it part-time because he is a process engineer in Sarawak Energy. Is dealing with the water treatment systems in Sarawak Energy. Okay, so now I will go a little bit into my research. This is published in the AICTE journal. So AICTE is American Institute of Chemical Engineers. So this journal is quite prestigious journal for chemical engineers. Okay, normally professors, the big professors in chemical engineering, people like Luyben, or people like McCabe and Thiel, they publish in in the journal affiliated with the American Institute of Chemical Engineers. So now I go with the slides. Okay, these are the slides that I presented when I give a keynote for the conference not long ago. Okay, so in here it's all about from experimental to simulation. Okay, the use of the Tunley model for this type of the membrane. It's so called an LCF, silver oxygen selective mixed ionic electronic conducting hollow fiber membrane. Okay, I will not go through everything because I think you have known our campus already about this. I'm not gonna go. I'll just gonna go and talk a little bit that actually in here in our campus we already have some of our staff, including me. We are doing a different research areas. We have research in the energy storage, which is the graphene-based supercapacitor. We also have research in ceramic membrane for clean coal combustion and hydrogen production. And your lecturer, like Dr. Howie, is doing energy planning using pinch analysis. Okay. We also have another type of the research projects in the oil palm industry, how to use the biomass waste and convert it into something that are more useful. So we use the thermochemical processes such as dry torrefaction, wet torrefaction, pyrolysis, gasifications, and a catalytic copyrolysis to convert those oil palm biomass waste such as empty fruit bunch, oil palm trunk into a fuel. Okay, that with the hope to reduce the waste and while we create something that is useful for the society. Okay, so I will not go into the deep into these things, but it's just to give you a little bit of flavor into what you can do with the process modeling. Okay, later on. So I'll just go and make it full screen in here. So you may ask me, sir, what is the background of this? Wait, why did I share this one? I think what about this technology? So before we talk about this type of membrane, we're gonna go a little bit into the background. So oxygen, you know oxygen, right? Oxygen is 21% in the air. So it's actually a highly sought chemical in many industries, including healthcare, chemical, energy, and etc. The way that the oxygen is produced is normally through the cryogenic separations or pressure swing adsorption. You know the pressure swing adsorption already. I showed you in your week 1. I think that one was on Monday lecture. That pressure swing adsorption can be used also to produce pure oxygen from the air. The difference is that you have to use an adsorbent that are selective to oxygen. Basically adsorbent that are that will basically absorb nitrogen instead of oxygen. Okay, then only oxygen will come out from your pressure swing adsorption bed. Now the problem with these two processes, cryogenic separation and pressure swing adsorption, they are very expensive. Okay, cryogenic separation is basically what you do is you decrease the temperature of the gases up to very low temperature, such that the oxygen and nitrogen becomes liquid. When they become liquid, then you subject it to the distillation process. When you subject it to the distillation process, there is a difference in terms of the boiling point between oxygen and nitrogen. But because you need to reduce the temperature to very low temperature, meaning the energy that you need is very extensive, and also the equipment that you need to build for that thing, including the insulator and everything, it has to be very good to do that very low temperature process. Okay, that's why these two processes are not considered as an effective process. Now, there is a new material. It's called the mixed ionic electronic conducting membrane. This type of membrane is something that is new. The technology has been developed at around 1980s at the end, but it has not been mature yet. Okay, it's basically using a highly ordered oxide structure. Okay, oxide materials. It's called the perovskite. Okay, this one is a promising membrane material because it has an oxygen flux of above 10 milliliter per centimeter square per minute. Now, how does the oxygen being transported in this particular membrane? It's because at the very high temperature, there is some of the oxygen from some of the oxide or the oxygen oxide anion, or something that we call an oxygen ion in here within that material will be will disappear in the lattice. Okay, they form a defect. So as an essence, if we apply the oxygen partial pressure difference, so if imagine we have a membrane, then at this particular site we have a high pressure of the oxygen. At this particular site of the membrane, we have a very low pressure of the oxygen. You can vacuum that site, for example, right? Then the oxygen at that high temperature, they can basically move through the membrane lattice, diffuse into the other side. So as an essence, what you will have is only a pure oxygen diffusion through the membrane, from the feed side into the permeate side. Okay. So this is in essence what is happening at the high temperature. Okay. You have the three process called the surface exchange reaction. You have the bulk diffusion, and then you have another surface exchange reaction again. Okay. The driving force is created by having the different partial pressure of the oxygen from this side to the other side. So every diffusion, they have to have a driving force. If they don't have a driving force, then it's impossible for you to have a transport. Okay. Then you will ask me, sir, what is the applications of this membrane in the real situations? Now you know that we have a coal, right? Now what you use in your car is a petrol, and also sometimes when you cook, you use a natural gas, right? Natural gas, the main component is the methane. But in the long run, you cannot keep on using the petrol, and you cannot keep on using the natural gas, right? You will eventually have to move to hydrogen. Okay. But before we can even go to the hydrogen, because many people prefer to use petrol, meaning we still have to use a coal, and coal is something that are very dirty, because you have a lot of components within that coal. If you burn a coal, that coal may contain carbon, that coal may contain a sulfur, that coal may contain N, whatever the component is. So if you burn this coal altogether, you will end up with the CO2, you will end up with the sulfur oxide or hydrogen sulfide. You may end up also with the nitrous oxide. Okay, so we still have a large amount of the coal remaining in the earth that we need to use. So before we can really move into the clean energy, we have to use that coal. But in order for us to be responsible, we have to use a technology called the clean coal combustion. So this is where this technology, the so-called oxy-fuel combustions, goes into play. Okay, and this is where the membrane module will play an effect. Okay, what you will have is essentially this membrane. We're gonna use a CO2 as a sweeping gas. When we put in a CO2 as a sweeping gas, then after we burn in the coal, what we will have is essentially the CO2 and the water. Then we can recirculate it back again into the membrane module to sweep the oxygen to goes back into the combustion system. Okay, I don't want to go into the technical things because this is probably a bit difficult, but this is just where the membrane here will have a significance. Okay, so then we're going to talk about hollow fiber membrane. So hollow fiber membrane is a special type of the membrane. Okay, so if we talk about the membrane, the normal membrane, then this one is the normal membrane. It's called the disk membrane. And when we operate that at high temperature, you can see that you have a very like a very burning sensations in here, because you need to operate that thing in the furnace, because the operation is higher than about 600 degrees Celsius. So in essence, when you tested the membrane, this is what you're going to have. You're going to seal that membrane, and then you're going to put a sweep gas on the permeate side. Okay. Now, The hollow fiber membrane is something that is special. We're going to use a process called a spinning process to create this kind of membrane. Okay. What we will have essentially is something like this. And then when we operate that in the real situations, this will be the schematic things. This is the hollow fiber. This is the air. This is the argon. Okay. So the simulations will play a role when we try to guess how the membrane should be operated. Okay, and we need to look into what are the available models that describes the oxygen transport in this membrane. So one of the model that has been invented in Imperial College is this model in here, the Tunley model. Okay, it considers a forward and reverse surface exchange reaction and bulk diffusion in here. So these things in here is basically an ordinary differential equation with respect to the length of the hollow fiber. Okay, it is a functions of the oxygen partial pressure in the feed side. It is a functions of the oxygen partial pressure in the permeate side in here. Okay, so we can simplify this model further if we assume that the membrane has a large surface area and very small thickness, such that the surface exchange reaction dominates the transport process. Okay, then the equations will become these equations in here. Okay, so then we want to do a simulation study. How do we do the simulation study? And first we ask why we want to do simulation study, because we want to evaluate the membrane performance at different conditions without extensive experiments and tests. Then it will give us a guide for future membrane design and development, right? So these are how you operate the hollow fiber membrane in the real situations. You have in here at about 900 plus hollow fiber membrane module, okay, that you basically pressurize in here such that only oxygen, high purity oxygen comes out on the other side. So if you look at the membrane module, you will have something like this, okay. So the modeling assumptions that we put in here is that the reaction kinetics is dependent on material temperature only, gas flow is steady, isothermal, and BF ideally. Oxygen transport across membrane in radial directions. Oxygen concentration varies in axial direction. The pressure drop in the lumen is described by Hagen-Poiseuille equation. This is the real grid that we use in the simulation setting. We have the feed air. We inject it to ATM. So remember that in the ambient condition, you have 1 ATM pressure. So this is double of your ambient pressure. It's 2 ATM. We put in a flow rate of 300 ml per minute. And what we put in essentially is just air, normal air, with the 21% concentration of oxygen. Okay, and this is the composition and the diameter of the hollow fiber. The effective length we assume 20 centimeter. The numbers is we put in 20, and we create the oxygen partial pressure by vacuuming by vacuum pressure. So we put in about 0.05. Then these are the configurations that we investigate in real that we are interested in. This one is co-current. The other one is the counter current. The co-current one is basically you use the same parallel configurations for the air and the sweep gas. Okay. Note that we have two different mode in here. The first one is the sweep gas. The second one is the vacuum mode. Okay. Then this is the formulations. How do we formulate the model? In the cell side, we use this balance, oxygen balance and the nitrogen balance. In the MIEC membrane side, we use this oxygen permeation equation. In the lumen side, we use this pressure drop. Okay, oxygen balance, inner balance, and vacuum mode in here. Okay, the detail is a bit complicated. Okay, but you are welcome to inspect the paper if you want, and happy to describe further if you are interested on this one. But and then what we did is basically using a shooting method with quite long MATLAB coding. Okay. Where we basically try to extract the value of this KR not in here with the ER. So this one is the activation energy of the surface exchange reaction. This one is the pre-exponential factor of the surface exchange reaction. Okay, these all are data that you obtain from the experimental. Okay, so your simulation is always have to be validated by experimental. If your simulation is not validated by experimental, then it has no use in the real world. So this is why we are doing it in here. And we are interested because this one is the result from the model. This one is the result from the experiment. So when they all fit nicely within that 45 degrees line, meaning your modeling fits well with your experimental. So these correlation coefficients will determine whether it's good or not. So because this is higher than about 0.99, meaning that your fittings are good. Okay, and then you have also a very good of this sum squared of error in here is quite okay. It's 0.3195. Okay, so in order for us to do these things, we need to use a 4 ordinary differential equations. The problem in here is essentially something we call a distributed model, but something that is not very difficult, something that is quite simple because we only have one coordinate. So this is basically just using a one-dimensional model, but still a bit difficult when you try to formulate it in detail. Okay, then we perform a nonlinear regressions to obtain these two parameter in here. Okay, so I will just go a little bit into the simulation result and then stop this because I think I don't want to make it too technical, right? The first simulation result that we get in here, we can have 5 cases: effect of temperature, effect of feed air flow rate, effect of feed air pressure, effect of sweep gas flow rate, and effect of the vacuum pressure. So what in essence it shows in here is the permeation versus kinetics. For the case 2 is the permeation versus the availability of the oxygen. The third, the fourth, and the fifth is the permeation versus the driving force. Okay, so these are the configurations that we use in this first simulation. We are using a parallel configurations in here. And this in here shows the oxygen partial pressure at different fiber length. Okay, you can see that when the oxygen partial pressure in the feed side meet with the oxygen partial pressure in the permeate side, then in essence there will be no more driving force after this particular point in here. So the point that where these two oxygen partial pressure meet with each other is called the equilibrium point. Okay, so when you go into the higher temperature, you can see that the equilibrium point is stretched to the higher fiber length. So the higher temperature favors a much better transport process because you can have more diffusion over longer fiber length. Okay, and in here you also see the effect of the different fibers. So for example, when you have a 10 fibers, 20 fiber, and 50 fibers, so you can see that if you have more fibers, then you can achieve a higher oxygen permeation at lower temperature in here. Okay, I'll go into the next. This one is just the same thing, but for the different configurations. Okay, the details will be different because as you can see in here that if you use this counter current configurations, then you can see that the oxygen partial pressure is lowered. Instead of going up to only 0.21 in here, the oxygen partial pressures can go up to 0 in here. So meaning you achieve a much more complete oxygen transport process, right? As a result, then you know that your oxygen permeation will be much higher for this case with respect to this particular case. So for in here you only achieve 1.5, but in here you can achieve up to about 2.8 mole per minute in here. Okay, so and that's the same with the vacuum as well. We will have a different effect with the same with the vacuum one again. Okay, but I will not go into the details. I think I will just stop it in here. Basically, what the key message in here is that the process modeling and the process control are really useful in the real life applications. That's why there is a significance of you studying and mastering those subjects, even though it looks difficult, but it does really have a significance in the daily life. So all the membrane process, the new technology, and how to optimize this process, how to optimize that process is basically coming from all these models. Okay, and all this is being done by using a MATLAB. That's why I say that MATLAB is a very strong tool for you to master. But of course, we don't expect you to master up to this kind of level, but except to introduce the MATLAB and then explore what do you think about the MATLAB and how you do it with the Aspen HYSYS, then that will give you an idea of the significance of those things. Okay. Is there any questions so far from everybody in anything that I show today? So I'll just ask everybody. Amanda, any questions? Anupaja, Clarence, Eva Mary, James, Jason, Jonathan, Juliana, Cising, Reko, Taha, Rachel, Selena, Sakya, Tiffany, Yusi, Hong Yo. Accumulation is very specific, you see, because you have a different balance, right? You have a different balance. Like, for example, you have a mass balance first that you need to deal with, or you may go with the flow with the component mass balance. So in a different balance, you have to be clear which one you have in terms of the. Are you talking about the mass balance? Are you talking about the component balance? Okay. Like, for example, I show you in the process control, you have three different balance, right? The first one is the flow rate. The F is equal F naught, right? And then after that, then you go into the mass balance, into the component balance, right? And then after that, you go into the energy balance. Then after that, you go into the jacket balance, energy balance for the jacket. Okay, so each may have an accumulations, right? So you have to specify which accumulation it is about. Okay, who was just asking just now? Accumulation terms is normally it's normal. Everything is normally come in terms of the time. If accumulation normally implies that it varies with time. Okay, but if it becomes a steady state when there is no accumulations, then of course the variable of time will not come into play anymore. Clarence, is it clear enough, Clarence? It's time basis. Rate implies that it's per time basically. So it's normally per time basis for accumulation, as far as I know. Okay. Clarence, did I answer your questions or not? Are you satisfied with my answer? No. When it's in steady state, meaning no accumulation. But you need to start from the general form first, Clarence. So let's say I go into these things. When you don't have this production and when you don't have the accumulation, meaning that in equal out. So that means it's a steady state process. You get it, Clarence? If the in is not equal out or the out is not equal in, but you don't have a productions, that means you have an accumulation. So that means if your in is not equal out, meaning you don't have a steady state process. You get it? You get what I mean, Clarence? So in steady state problem, you don't have the accumulation. Does it answer your questions or not, Clarence? You okay? Still confused? You want? Yeah, I guess so. I guess if that depends from problem to problem. So for example, if your in is 100, okay, your out is 80, because your in is not equal your out, because your in is larger than your out, meaning that you have an accumulation. Okay, so if you imagine in a tank, then the tank will build up with time. If that accumulation is not stopped, then what will happen is your liquid will spill. But if your in is 80, your out is 80, then you will have no accumulation. So the liquid head in your tank will be constant with time. Did you get what I meant, Clarence? You can ask me again, or you can set up a time with me to come to my office if you're not clear about these things. Okay. I think it's being too technical already, so I think I'll just conclude this week's lecture. I will just stop this recording first. Okay.